Hi guys, in this video we're going to make a cake topper of Sonic and Amy. I'm going to use some modelling paste. So I've got some Saracino modelling paste here because this is the right colours for me. And I'm going to start with his feet. So I'm taking some red modelling paste. Now roll kind of an Easter egg shape and we're going to cut it in half. And we'll put it down on the flat edge, so the bit we've just cut as the base of the feet. So that's Sonic's feet, and then Amy's feet are a little bit more complicated in shape. We've kind of pulled them up at the top either side and then cut them in half. So hers are more like little boots. Put some little lines, little crease lines across the middle bit there. I'm going to put a thin strip of white modelling paste across each of Sonic's shoes. Just trim off anything that goes past the bottom. And on Amy's shoes, the stripe is going to go across the front. So down the centre at the front, trim it off at the bottom again. Trim any off the top as well. We're going to give him a grey sole. So I've just got a bit of black and white mixed together to make a nice pale grey. Just using water to stick this onto there. And I've trimmed around, tracing around the shape of each foot. Now, so that his legs fit into his shoes, we're just going to push a hole in with a straw. It's going to give me about the right size. So can you see we're sticking the soles on Amy's shoes in the same way. Let's trim around the edge, neaten it off, just pressing around with our fingers. Now, I've kept hers quite chunky on the bottom of hers, so I've not rolled it too thin. Going to push the straw in now. Only one of her feet is going to be flat to the floor, so I'm only going to push the straw all the way through in one of those boots. And let's do Sonic's legs. So because I've put the hole in about the thickness of the straw, I'm just comparing my legs to the thickness of the straws. I've made sure they're slightly narrow at one end, and we're going to put them on a cake drum. So I've got 2 cake drums stuck together for this one. This way we can sit it easily on top of a cake and then take it off again if we want to. Now I've got a little square cutter here. Quite handy this one because it makes a few in one go. And I've got like brown and orange mixed together for these square colours. And we're going to put them across the edge, alternating those colours. Now I've not got them quite even at the top, and the one at the back is slightly smaller, but we're going to cover this up when we put our grass topping on. So I've got a lighter green and a darker green. I'm going to roll it out, not too thin, and I'm going to cut strips. I'm just going to use the width of my ruler because it's about 1 inch wide, just to make things easier for me when I'm cutting strips. And then I'm going to place them next to each other. I just need to make sure it's wide enough that it's a little bit wider than that cake drum that I started with. And I started with a 4-inch cake drum. Let's give them a little bit of a roll together. I should stick them together really without any water. Oh, that end one's come apart a little bit. And I've just pushed it lightly on top of my cake drum. So don't forget the cake drum has got those squares on the side. So I'm not going to press too hard on the side. Just really the top. So you can put a bit of water on the top of that cake drum if you want before putting this on. Just trimming off all the extra from around the edge. And then I'm going to cut out, using a little craft knife. Can you see some little triangles? So it looks like the edge of grass going all the way around. So don't go too high up to the top because our squares didn't quite make it to the top of those cake drums. So let's stick our feet now in position. So I've got Sonic on my right hand side. And I've just stuck one of Amy's next to it on the left. It looks a bit weird from above. Now I've cut out an indentation because I'm going to do a big ring. So one of the big gold rings. And it might not stand up too well on the base. So I've cut a little indentation that will sit into. Stick Amy's other shoe up so it's kind of stood on its toe. And Sonic's legs that we made in the dark blue, I've just pushed a kebab skewer into. So we're not going to eat this. So a kebab skewer should be okay. Just let anybody know who's having the cake with this on that you can't eat it with the kebab skewer in. So can you see they've pushed into the top of his shoes, and then we've created a strip of white, again modelling paste, that's just going to go around the bottom of each leg and onto the top of each shoe. Then we're going to create a little body for Sonic. So the body is quite small compared to his head. So I've just got pre-dyed blue modelling paste. I'll put links in the description box below to everything I've used. So we start with a teardrop, we put a little point on one end for the tail, and then we're going to cut a little V out the top, so that we can bend back the top bits once they're in place for spikes. And then an oval of like pale flesh tone for the tummy. Now with Amy's legs we're going to do a similar thing but using pink. Only one of them is going to be on a skewer because only one of them's upright. The second one, can you see, doesn't have anything inside because it's got a little bend, and we're just going to try and attach it to the first leg, so the one that is actually on the skewer. I'm just putting a bit more pink at the top just to secure it in place. Let's put some white around the tops of these boots. And I've got some red for her dress. So starting with a cone, thinning it out at the bottom. It kind of looks like the top of some weird mushroom shape. I'm going to slide it onto that skewer. And it's a little bit long on the top, so I'm just going to slice a bit off the top of there. just putting some little marks in, so some little crease lines using my Dresden tool. And a little disc of white, so it's quite a chunky disc of white that's just threaded onto the top there. And she wants a white trim now all the way around the bottom. So again, just a long thin piece of white. I'm using modelling paste again for that. Let's give Sonic some little buckles while we're waiting for the bodies and legs to firm up a bit. So again, just a long snake shape, sticking it on with water, and it's kind of going, it's a bit difficult for you to see on this one, it's kind of going around that white bit, that white stripe on his foot. You can only just really see that on there. Now arms, I've just created a little indentation up by Sonic's shoulder, and I've got this really pale flesh colour. I'm going to roll a snake shape, I'm going to attach it from his shoulder towards Amy's back, and then we'll do the same from Amy's shoulder towards Sonic's back. Then we're going to give them some chunky little hands. So start with an oval, squish it down. Can you see we've cut out a little triangle where that thumb is? And then let's cut some more lines for our fingers. And I'm just going to press in slightly in the palm of the hand and the bottom of the fingers. Try and position them a little bit. So can you see I've bent the fingers round on this one? And on the one that's going to go on Amy's back, we're keeping it flat. So I've just put a bit of water on the palm. Now this one's going to be stuck out to one side, so it might not hold up too well on its own, so I'm going to put a cocktail stick through the body. Just leave that in there ready. There is a bit of water under the cocktail stick. And we're just going to put a strip of white around his wrist. Let's put Amy's other hand on, the one that's easier to do. A little strip around her wrist. And then I realised after putting these on that Amy has big yellow bracelets instead. Now we've got a large ball for Sonic's head. I'm going to wait before I add that other arm. And I'm adding a piece of pale flesh colour again. But I'm stretching it across so it goes quite wide on the bottom of the face. And it's up slightly where the nose is, putting a hole in where the nose is going to go. Let's put a little mouth in, we'll just draw that in slightly with a line with our Dresden tool or even with a cocktail stick. And let's press in slightly above where, or between where his eyebrows would go. And let's give him some white eyes. So I've just pulled these shapes, starting with a circle and then kind of pulling a little bit off in the inside corner, or pulling a little bit out on the inside corner. Let's start with a bit of a sausage shape that we're going to put around the outside edge, so all the way around the outside edge or the top outside edge of those eyes. And then we've got some little green ovals, which I'm just using a cutter for. Make sure they don't stick out too much. If you need to, just press them down a little bit flatter. And then we've got an even smaller oval in black. Just make sure that goes in the green bit. Tiny, tiny dot of white. This is just food colouring that I've got for the white. And a little teardrop for the nose. So the pointy end of my teardrop has gone into that hole that we've done. And can you see the other bit sticks out? So let's push this onto our skewer. So if you're using solid modelling paste, make sure the body is firmed up enough to take hold of the weight. And the arm, or the skewer that we stuck in earlier for the arm, I'm just threading onto a little sausage shape of skin tone. Now one of the hands I made earlier, the thumbs up one, I've just stuck onto the end of that cocktail stick as well. And we'll put a piece of white around the wrist shortly as well. Now Amy's face starts with a ball as well. Now I've pushed it on a little bit too firm so you can just see the stick coming out the top, but that's fine, we can cover that up later with her hair. And I'm putting the mouthpiece on in the same way I did on Sonic, but I'm going to open her mouth up a little bit. I'm going to add a tiny piece of black, pushing it in there. Tiny, tiny piece of pink for her tongue. Her nose, slightly different in shape to Sonic's, so start with an oval and then we'll kind of press the bottom so it's a bit more triangular. Her eyes are just going to go on in exactly the same way as Sonic's did, but I haven't put any pink around them at the moment. Put some highlights of white in her eyes and also on her nose. So her arm's going to stick out as well, so we're going to put a cocktail stick in. So I've put the hole in first, then I've taken it back out, ready for later. Now her hair is a bit of an awkward shape, so I had to kind of measure this, keep taking it off and then keep measuring again. I've tried to cut out a shape at the front that goes around her eyes and slightly down onto sort of the side of her cheeks, and I've kept the back of it quite straight. So we're going to put a thin piece of black going around the top edge of each of Amy's eyes. Try and get a point on either end of the black, otherwise it's going to look a little bit chunky. Oops, and I've just smudged the white on her nose, so maybe do the white at the very end. And I've rolled some tiny pieces of black. We're just going to trim off, can you see the pointy ends? And I'm just going to stick those on. I'm just using water, so they just come out from either side of her eyes, her little eyelashes. And here's my ring. So the ring is just a piece of yellow modelling paste. Now I have let this set overnight, so you can see the join at the bottom, but it has set solid. If it doesn't set solid, it won't stay in a ring shape. And can you see I've just used a little ball of green that I had left from the grass to just stick over the top just to hold that in place. Now that's on, let's put a bit of Amy's hair in place. I've also, I don't know if you can just see, Sonic's got a single triangle coming off the back of his head that I've put over the top of the gold ring just to secure it in place. Now Amy wants a little headband that's going to go onto the seam where the front of her hair meets the back of her hair. Just going to add another strip of white around the end of Sonic's hand. Now I've cut 2 little triangles. You can cut them by hand if you don't have this cutter, for Amy's ears. And we've got the pale flesh colour. We're just going to try and get another triangle inside each of the pink ears. Just stick those on with a little bit of water. Just got a bit more hair at the front. So this cut piece that's kind of got little triangular bits coming out of it. I'm just going to try and stick this to like her forehead. A bit like that. So Sonic now wants his big spikes sticking on. So I've rolled some cone shapes. Just nudging them on. So I've just got a bit of water on my finger that I'm just using to rub into the edge. Just be careful because you can see the blue dye does come out and it goes on everything that you touch. So I'm just putting a second one on there. They're going over the yellow ring and that'll hold the ring in place as well. So just keeping going further up the head. So this is now my 4th one I'm sticking on. Let's put number 5 on. Try and blend in the tops of the spikes the best you can. So can you see they're just starting to disappear? I've just put a bit of water on my finger and rubbed that. There we go. So she's still missing an arm and Sonic still needs some ears. So the same as we did Amy's ears, only we're going to use blue for Sonic's, but again that pale flesh colour in the middle. And I've just kind of curved them slightly when I've put them on. And Amy needs another hand. So just like we were doing earlier, we're going to create a little hand shape, starting with an oval, squishing it down, cutting out a little triangle where the thumb's going to be, putting in our fingers. I've stuck the cocktail stick from earlier through a little sausage piece of pale skin tone. Just make sure that's pushed into her body nice and firmly. And I've got a really fat piece of yellow that we're just going to twist around her arm. So this is what she has around her wrist instead of that white strip that I put on earlier. And then I'm just going to try and push that hand onto there. So keep an eye on the hand because it might want to move around a little bit. There they are. I think they're all finished. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram and more.